So today we are going all the way back to 1974. Let's talk the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Review. So we are continuing on our 31 Days of Horror, and today we're looking at the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. So the Texas Chain Saw Massacre was released in 1974. It is of course an American slasher film as directed by Tobe Hooper. Now the movie of course is quite well known for one, introducing the character of Leatherface and his family, and also being quite controversial. Now of course the reason the movie is controversial is just because how bizarre it is, how graphic it is, and how realistic the entire thing was in 1974. When the movie was originally released, it was released in a way where people thought it actually was based on real life events. So we would of course get that with future movies throughout the next few decades, but Texas Chain Saw Massacre was one of the earlier ones to actually play on that idea. Tobe Hooper, the director as well, originally actually wanted to bring the movie out as a PG rating, but instead it came out as an X rating. The film of course has a lot of bizarre and shocking moments in it, but what a lot of people don't actually realise is it doesn't really have a lot of blood. If you actually rewatch the film, you'll see there's only a couple of scenes throughout the movie where we see blood or gore. Instead, a lot of it is left up to the audience's imagination. Even when people are killed throughout this movie, if they're thrown on a hook, you don't see a lot of blood. It's a bit of a splatter and that's about it. A lot of kills in the film are done with kind of hooks or sledgehammers where they don't present a lot of gore. Now the movie also has quite a unique look to it, and a lot of that is due to how it was filmed. So it is filmed with 16mm and it helps the movie immensely. It does kind of give this visceral, raw feeling to the film overall. It kind of at times feels like a documentary. So when you are watching the film, when you see these characters and the events that unfold on screen, there's just something realistic about it. It has this kind of grainy look to it overall. As I said guys, there's not a lot of blood, but just because it looks so bizarre and so realistic, you do buy into the story. The characters in this one, honestly, they're not the best characters in the world. They are quite one-dimensional, but again, because of how realistic the film is, you do buy into what's happening with them. You don't necessarily care about what happens to most of the characters, but when they do go through this ordeal, when Leatherface and his family are killing them off, just how it's presented to you on screen feels very realistic and very visceral. Leatherface himself is also quite bizarre in the movie, so he kind of starts the movie off in a kitchen apron and with a sledgehammer. As the film progresses and we reach the climax of the movie, he ends up in lipstick with a shirt and tie. For a movie that was released in 1974, it just has this very strange feel to it. Leatherface also of course is wearing human faces at the time when he's kind of taking people out. There's a lot with this movie that just kind of unnerves you more than anything else. The rest of the family as well are just as crazy. We get the cook, who really is this kind of older man who's just tired and sick of what's happening with him and his family. They've been killing people for quite some time and he just comes across as quite frustrated. He is a strange character for sure. You can tell there's a few screws missing from him, but he's nothing compared to the hitchhiker. The hitchhiker in this movie guys is probably one of the scariest parts of the entire Texas Chain Saw Massacre franchise. He is absolutely loony and the actor who plays him carries that off perfectly. Just the performance he gives, he kind of gives off this sense of danger right out of the gate, and that doesn't let up until he's off screen. He is a strange character for sure, but almost every villain in this one are bizarre characters. The movie was also shot during a heat wave in Texas at the time, and honestly when you're watching the movie you can almost feel the heat come off the screen. Particularly during the last act of the movie, that kind of iconic dinner scene. So at the time the cast and crew were filming in this tiny room with a dead heat outside and rotting carcasses in the room with them. So Tobe Hooper actually went out and picked up rotting carcasses just to give the film this more realistic look. Of course though, the actors and the crew had to film and act inside it, so as you can imagine, tempers were probably flaring. I think most of the cast and crew were sick of it at that point. They kind of wanted the entire thing to be done, but again, because of that, it does kind of translate on screen and you feel what the actors are feeling. It's unfortunate we don't really get too many movies like this anymore. The film of course, you know, it has a few jokes here and there, but it's not a very funny movie. Instead it is quite disturbing and it kind of leaves you emotionally drained. Because to me this is downright horror. It's disturbing, it's unnerving, and it kind of stays with you after you finish watching it. If you haven't already guys, I highly recommend checking this one out. Of course you can also check the rest of the series out, even the remake, which I consider to be almost as good as this one. But of course, jump into the 1974 classic first, see where it all started and see what you think of it. If you can guys, pop back here and let me know your thoughts on the movie. Now, as always guys, if you haven't already, make sure you pop on the notification bell. For the month of October, I'm doing 31 videos, so every single day we will have a new video. If you haven't already guys, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.